Our good bishop used to advise us in the Triduum to ruminate on the words of our Saviour at the Last Supper, especially on Holy Thursday. These are the words that we hear in these days, even though now it's post-resurrection, but the ambit is the same, Trinitarian. There is mystery in the air, and the Lord seems to have conquered by anticipation. And in that serenity he is able to indicate his authority. Not only will he be able to intercede for the brethren and obtain from the Father, but he himself will be able to give. I will give. And here he indicates the power of our own intercession. We forget that. We do our little bit of worrying just in case he can't quite manage. It is the experience of the Christian centuries that prayer, intense, sincere, and shared, can influence the heart of our God and therefore the course of history. I remember being puzzled some years ago when given a printout of what happened in the Second World War. General Patton, who was in charge, if I remember rightly, at the débarquement in Normandy, was under stress because everything depended on one day on weather conditions. I believe it was after the débarquement itself, and he issued a very interesting order. He had no other means, and he was dependent on one only. And so he gave this command to the troops to all pray to God for a change of weather. The optic was, of course, that they would have victory. And this has puzzled commentators, because the question then is God able to perform a miracle so that we can have actually a military conquest? Anyway, be that as it may, the weather changed, and the soldiers that had prayed won. And by the way, I heard this also from somebody who had been present before then at Dunkirk. He said there were no atheists at Dunkirk. And so one understands why these soldiers' prayers might actually pierce the skies. And by the way, in the First World War, the soldiers did see things. Angels in the air over the trenches. Heaven was interested when many souls were on the frontier. The frontier here between time and eternity, as was picked up at Fatima. It was during the First World War that the children were shown the other place. And also there was a sorrow in heaven because not all the soldiers were making it, and prayer was needed. Now, in the context of Fatima, we know what happened when the hierarchy of the whole of Portugal made this consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And this miracle took place of reversal of the communist revolution that was happening, of protection from involvement with the Spanish Civil War, protection from involvement with the Second World War, an explosion of vocations, and a massive increase of faith in families. It was because it was a kind of foreshadowing of what heaven had in mind if the explicit consecration of the world, in Russia in particular, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary was made explicitly now. That there was going to be some huge change indicating that it was explicitly, thereby, by the intervention and power of the Immaculate Heart, that the victory was going to be given to mankind over the powers of darkness. Now, we forget in our faith sometimes what we're handling. It is the power of God. In our specifically Catholic faith, we do have inklings of that, little signs. We actually see them happening here and there, things, silhouettes, we have little signs from heaven. Yes, I'm there, I'm involved, and I'm happy with what you're doing. Carry on. Little signs of encouragement. But there are also in our tradition links with our past. In a Catholic country like Italy, where there has been no discontinuity with the past, as there has been in England, we have all over the place bits of reminder of things which have happened before. I can think now easily of at least 2 churches where often we would be asked to celebrate near the monastery. Indeed, a third would be the monastery itself, because we had a miraculous crucifix there, which when it was taken away to be put in a museum, wanted to come back, because the Lord intervened by making a continuous moving of earth between the monastery and the museum until it came back, and then only did it subside, and it's there now. But we had also around other little hints of what had happened before that we had received from past generations. One church where I would be asked to celebrate quite often would be the Madonna of the Charity, Il Tempio della Carità, the Temple of Charity. What happened there was, centuries past, there was a terrible famine and people didn't have enough, and people didn't have enough work. And this man was furious and he was threatening things to his family if that day he didn't find any work at all. So he went out to try and find work, and his wife was terribly upset and nervous what would happen when he came back. So she just turned to prayer. And what was her surprise when she opened what they call the magia, it's a huge kind of cupboard affair where food would be stored, and she found it full of grain. And they built this temple to thank the Lord for it at the bottom of the mountain of Seggiano, near the graveyard. But then there were others. There's one close to the monastery where I'd be sent sometimes. It was the Madonna del Secorso, and there it goes back to about 1302. This venerable icon or fresco was venerated, and then it came, as it were, into action when the troops of Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, were besieging the walled city of Montalcino near the monastery. And there was a heavenly invention. It was precisely intervention, because there the whole city, dedicated to our Blessed Lady, pleaded with her at that place for her defence. And there is a stained glass window in the sanctuary, which you'll be watching when celebrating. Well, there it indicates what happened. I forget the details, but she intervened, and against all odds, the troops were driven away, and her city was protected. And then the other one, not far away, Siena, also was protected by their devotion to her. That's the city of Our Lady. It's for Our Lady that they have the Palio every year, more than once a year. They have this banner which the horse riders drive for. They try to get this banner. Anyway, it's another story, but there's a perpetual miracle going on, and we used to use it every Corpus Christi. The holy particles, still perfectly preserved, carried through the streets. It's there since 1730. Now these were all around, miracles and traces of miracles in a Catholic land like Italy. But they show how close heaven is to earth. With this in mind, we need to be aware that we're always only a few millimeters from the beyond, and that the power that we have in the sacramental world is truly divine, and we can pull on the divine. Indeed, I remember hearing this or reading it in France. I was given to read very early on at La Trappe the life of Don Gabriel Sorte, who had been a monk of Bellefontaine, the daughter house of La Trappe, and he became Abbot General. He died in 1963, and he was a holy Trappist. And he knew things, and he maintained that anything that a priest asked at the moment of consecration at the altar, and he made no exceptions, if aucune exception, he would say, would be granted. And there's a reason for that. There is, as it were, in a fraction of time, a total identification between Christ and the priest himself at that point. So this is our link with the beyond, the power That's why a contemplative, quiet celebration helps us to understand and feel that far more than a noisy one where we're addressing the people and looking at them. There's much grace in the air, and that is picked up in silence. Alas, the Latin Mass will not be possible at the reopening of the churches this weekend. We've discussed it, and it's not going to be possible. Just for people to be aware that there will be no High Mass in Johnstown at the moment. It just isn't possible. There are too many constrictions, and so that must be, for the time being, parked. Alas, but it has to be. The Lord is not short of grace, and if we give him the space, we will surely find a means of invading it in his gentle way. It will give us thirst for the things of God, which perhaps we've got too used to, forgetting their size and power.